Was passiert, wenn Sportmarketing auf echte Emotionen, datengetriebene Entscheidungen und die Dynamik globaler Ligen trifft? In dieser englischsprachigen Episode von Agency Life sprechen Robin und Luise mit Sharon Bennett, Head of Client Services bei WePlay, einer der spannendsten Sportmarketing-Agenturen Europas. Was braucht es, um Top-Teams wie Paris Saint-Germain digital zu begleiten? Und warum sind Frauen- und Nischensportarten oft die spannendere Herausforderung? Ein ehrlicher Blick hinter die Kulissen von High-Performance-Kampagnen, Fanaktivierung und Agenturarbeit im Ausnahmezustand. Willkommen bei Agency Life Deutschland, heute mit Sharon Bennett. An dieser Stelle möchten wir euch mal verraten, worum es uns und unserem Partner Teamleader in diesem Podcast überhaupt geht. Wir laden zu jeder Folge spannende Persönlichkeiten aus der Agenturszene ein. Mit ihrem Wissen und ihren Erfahrungen möchten wir Inspiration und Motivation schaffen. Am Puls der Zeit für die Agenturwelt.
Und genau dort setzt Teamleader mit seiner leistungsstarken Agentursoftware an. Diese hilft bereits über 4000 Agenturen dabei, Terminfristen einzuhalten, Budgets zu kontrollieren, Gewinnmargen zu steigern, Kapazitäten zu planen und vieles mehr, damit ihr euch voll und ganz auf eure Kreativität konzentrieren könnt. Von Agenturen für Agenturen. Und los geht's mit unserer heutigen Folge.
Hey Sharon, welcome to our podcast.
Hi guys, nice to see you.
Before we dive in, let us and get the audience get acquainted with sports marketing at WePlay. What services fall under the umbrella of sports marketing?
So WePlay is full service in terms of sports marketing. In terms of we offer multiple services, certainly more than 4. So it covers everything from strategy and creative strategy and business and strategy, digital media, creative services, and technology. We have a number of proprietary products that we offer our clients. So we can offer the full service, or we can specialize in just one for our clients.
Not too long ago, or not that long ago, Paris Saint-Germain claimed the historic Champions League title. A double question in that regard. Which part did we play in all that? And how did you, yourself and your team experience the win? Could you enjoy it, or did it just create more hard work?
Well, where do I start? Yeah, certainly working with Paris Saint-Germain is fantastic, and the agency WePlay, I've worked with them for many years. I've been fortunate to be at WePlay for just under 2 years now, and as you say, they most recently won a number of trophies, including the iconic Champions League trophy. So we were working with them throughout the entire competition. And as anyone that follows the Champions League will know, you don't know if you're going to be in the final. So a lot of it is contingency planning, scenario planning to understand what will happen should they qualify, should they get into the quarterfinals, the semi, and then the final. A broad set of services for them, mainly around digital media and digital strategy. And did we watch it? We were all watching it on the Saturday evening. We have a WhatsApp channel with the client, and it was incredibly exciting. And I'm sure anyone that likes or knows football and is aware of Paris Saint-Germain, their entire approach to the team strategy and also on and off the pitch is very innovative. And they're trying something quite unique within that top tier of football or soccer. Super interesting. And the partnership continues as they're off to the Club World Cup, the FIFA Club World Cup. So the partnership continues through that as well.
What, according to you, makes a sport marketing agency different from product marketing or another type of agency?
Do you know, I think we've been looking at this a lot, really, and we've this is not new, but the combining of arts and science is something that I think WePlay do incredibly well. So understanding, sport is an emotional industry. It's an emotional, the fans are emotional. You're talking to, raw emotions when we're talking to audiences, which I think is quite unique to someone maybe that's going to buy a product off the shelf or buy a finance product. So that in itself is quite unique. And tapping into those different audiences who are continually changing as sports evolves, as generations evolve, and their tastes and communities evolve. So there's a constant state of change. There's also a lot of unknowns, much like the Champions League. You don't know if you're going to win. You don't know what the next season looks like, or even who your partners might be. So, there's that being able to be very agile and change, and I think it feels much more, much quicker, and you have to be much more agile than when I've worked for other industries.
Do you feel that the expectations are higher? Because, when you work for Paris Saint-Germain, everybody is looking at you.
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely a need. We work with high performance teams, not exclusively. We also like to support, I personally do as well, the growth of awareness of sports that need to increase participation, perhaps less well-known sports. But for the majority of our clients, the top tier of elite sports performance, the professionals that we work with day to day are at that level as well. They're working with the CEOs, the chairmen, the owners of those particular clubs. So what comes with that is that expectation, which is high, and they want results quickly, and they want to know that everything we're doing is driven by data and their KPIs. So that brings another level of pressure as well. But it's good. I mean, I think, and the fact that we work across so many different sports allows us to transfer knowledge across within the sports ecosystem, the different types of sports properties you might have.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it feels that the world of sport marketing is still very much developing, that the template's not there yet. Do you feel that at WePlay that you guys are at the forefront of that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I genuinely do. We are really... There are some set templates within sport, playbooks within sport, that are quite traditional, but it's such a fast-paced, evolving industry, both in terms of the different platforms that are available to fans to engage with sports. The different formats are changing. The fragmentation of media in which fans can access sport, as I'm sure you know, is increasingly fragmented. So we're constantly evolving to work with rights holders, with clubs, and even broadcasters to understand, what do our clients need to do to stay relevant and adapt to those changes in the industry. Sports consumption is changing a lot, and hence the work we're doing within gaming or esports platforms is also an interesting area to talk to new fans, and some of those playbooks are very new, if not written yet, and being tested, really. A lot of what we do, we're very, where we can with clients, we do encourage that sort of test and learn approach, so that we can, if possible, see how things perform, but not be afraid to shift, and if they're not working, into a slightly different approach and strategy. So yeah, I certainly think that we are leading in some of those areas for sure.
Is it a competitive market, the world of sports marketing?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. You have some traditional agencies that are sort of what I call kind of pure sports marketing, and that's all they've done, and that's what they do. And then you have some of the larger networked agencies that are definitely, working with brands that are operating within sport, whether it's through partnerships. And so that's adding to competition. Then you have some really niche boutique agencies that maybe specialize in just certain sports. And have done for a long time. So it is competitive. I guess it makes it exciting. We don't tend to sort of find that we're always, because we're quite integrated and offer a number of different services. It does mean that we are not always coming up against the sort of same, from as far as I'm aware, agency sets that we compete against, but it's also the competition for talent and in recruitment. So sport is a great industry, and a lot of interest, and a lot of people want to work in sport, and we want to make sure we get the best people as well, but that are right for WePlay, but equally it's competitive. So it's competitive in a number of ways. And I guess the other thing I'm seeing more of at the moment is clients building out internal teams, which I know isn't unique to sport. But as you mentioned earlier, Robin, I think some businesses within, or teams within sports organizations are less mature. But I think as they mature, that often comes with their growth of growing out those internal teams and offerings, which has pros and cons, I think.
Well, let's shine a light on you specifically, Sharon, for a second, because you are currently leading client services at WePlay, working with some of those biggest names in global sports. But how would you yourself describe your role? What is it that you do on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis?
Yeah, I the head of client services role, particularly at WePlay, combines a number of different areas. So it's very much operational. So understanding, who are the people we need, who are the teams we need, how do they operate effectively together, what are the systems and processes that we might use. But equally, it's on looking at our obviously delivery, how we're servicing clients, are we meeting their expectations, meeting their KPIs. So it's about performance. And then it's also about growth and, how do we as a business continue to grow our clients, not just from a sort of revenue perspective, although clearly that's very important, but just, the opportunities that we see for our clients to be more successful, and how do we take that? So I'm often, I guess, spinning a lot of plates, as you say, and that needs to happen in this role. It has to be quite holistic.
What are the main metrics that your clients are looking for at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, there are several. So it can range from reaching new audiences in new markets. So reaching markets they're not currently in, or just expanding their market share and audiences in those particular markets. It could be social growth. For some of our clients, it's really about building the number of their, not just vanity metrics, but just the engagement and the quality of their fans. For some of our clients, it's who have a huge audience base already. It could be, how do we monetize those fans? So how do we build loyalty? How do we introduce them to membership programs or subscriptions that you might find? So it will vary depending on the project, but everything we do is very much grounded in data to really inform what those KPIs are, and then a strategy for how we're going to get there.
How do you make those KPIs, those raw numbers on a sheet, how do you make them meaningful to those high-level clients?
So you're absolutely right. We work with a lot of data and a lot of numbers, and depending on clearly how senior often the stakeholder is, they're time poor. So really it's about how do we really draw from all of the data and the KPIs that we've reached the key insights that will inform their strategies and their growth plans themselves. So it might be that they are looking for specific numbers to attract different partners, or moving into a different market where they need to open up conversations with new partners in that particular region. So for us, as well as the data, it's about drawing those sort of so what moments from campaigns and activities, and really turning that into tangible ideas that they can take, that the data will inform. So that might be a campaign, it could be any number of things, but it's really drawing from that data, what are the key insights, and how does it address the challenges that they called out at the beginning of the campaign. And we do that in a number of different ways, in terms of how we present back the data.
I'm wondering how that works with new clients, because in the early days of working with a client, you don't have the data to prove yet that you're doing good. So how do you earn the trust of a new client and make them feel like things are moving?
Yeah, I mean, for many of our clients, that's often a part of the brief is, they are relatively new, or they've got a new format or product that they need to raise awareness of. And so we're often brought in to help them build that data and really understand where the growth opportunities are. In terms of adding value to clients, when they haven't got that data, say, already, we're very much in understanding what does good look like for them, even in the short term and then the longer term, and then making sure that we're meeting those short-term goals, but also with a view to that longer-term objective that might have. On a practical sense, it's very much regular communications, status updates, check-ins, all of the usual things you'd expect, just to give the client that confidence that the team are working on that, and that we are making progress. And just really working with them to understand what those, even if they're relatively small compared to, say, a Paris Saint-Germain, what are the metrics that they need to help them and be successful, and understanding what they are and how we can support that.
Mm.
There's probably different maturity levels in your partners then as well. I can imagine some sports brands saying, okay, we know the game, we want to sell more tickets, but then others say, okay, we want to get started in marketing or brand better for whatever goal. How do you approach that?
Yeah, and you know what? That for me, that makes the role exciting. And we say sort of never 2 days are the same, and I think that's exactly where that sort of plays into it, where you could be working with an incredibly established competition organisation, and as you say, their brief would be quite different. But equally, we work with new, progressive, emerging sports and sports properties, particularly in women's sport, where there is still huge growth opportunities and a need to build sustainable growth strategies for women's sport. So we would look at different products, maybe different the team structure and setup. We have a number of services and that we're trying to turn into like a product offering. So it's much easier from a client's perspective to work with us in that way, and it's almost not quite off the shelf, but we would clearly adapt it. The output isn't the same, but the methodology and the approach we use would be similar. So it's really about finding different sort of methodologies and ways of working for those different teams, and scaling teams as well. We don't always have to flood a team with lots and lots of people at different levels. Sometimes you need a small but perfectly formed team just to execute quickly, with experience. So we're just adaptable.
Do you personally prefer working with the big established competitions or setting up a new emerging club for success?
Oh, that's a good question. I think for me now, the exciting is perhaps some of these new emerging sports or sports that need perhaps more help, in terms of, and not just because they're new, and they don't have the current fan base. So that's probably for me a bigger challenge. It doesn't necessarily have the profile and the news headlines such as the Champions League winners, but it still is an interesting challenge for us, and one that I find really interesting when I'm talking to clients, particularly if it's a new client or even a pitch scenario, is that we do have that flexibility and understand that just because we work with some of the top tier sports, we're very mindful of what needs to happen and the opportunities for new sports or sports that are less well known, and therefore, so for me, I think probably new emerging sports. I'm also very supportive of sport for all, and making sure that we can, how do we help our clients make their sports more accessible and increase and improve participation at all levels. Not everybody has the luxury of being able to play or train for certain elite sports, but sport is for all. So how do we make sure it's accessible? And that can come down to campaigns and messaging. And so I'm probably on that side, but don't get me wrong, I do enjoy being part of a winning team like Paris Saint-Germain.
Yeah, I can imagine. Let's go back to this productization of your offering. Can you maybe give an example of how that works?
It's really where we work, mainly in the digital media space. I think there are opportunities where, without compromising on all of the smarts and the creative and strategic thinking that goes into a campaign or an authoring, there are, I think, ways that we can develop, or that we are looking at, a product that can be repurposed and reused for different accounts. Now, it wouldn't mean that the actual end product is the same or the deliverable, but how we get there can be a lot quicker and perhaps more efficient, because it's a tried and tested approach. So we're looking at how we can perhaps create some of those products for our clients, whether they need to just act fast, so we need a plug and pay option really quickly, or perhaps they are on that sort of more earlier part of their journey where they are building fans and therefore budgets, quite frankly. So how can we be part of that journey with them by offering them something that's perhaps a bit more affordable and accessible, but that we know will work.
Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like creating a package of like a starter pack to launch a new club, something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so many different options. Like one thing we are looking at, and something I'm leading, is how can we help women's sports? Now that could be developing a toolkit for your marketing strategy. So it's a sort of, what are the things you need to include? How can we help them? What can we template for them? And that could be community outreach. It could be, launching of new players and the new kit. There are different moments within the sporting calendar that I think we could develop more affordable or accessible products that we can give to those particular sports that really need support from agencies to sort of raise their game.
How do you see automation adding value to the services of WePlay?
We're looking at it in a number of ways. We're looking at it both in terms of how we service our clients, particularly within digital media. So, are there elements of what we do within the digital sort of media and optimization process in terms of advertising? That automation could come in and help time and make sure that if that's automated, that allows us to spend more time perhaps on strategy and really thinking at that higher level. Equally, because of what we do and it's so data driven, we have a lot of dashboards, as you'd imagine, for reporting. So clearly automation for that is a key area, and giving our clients just real time access to their performance and data. We're working on a number of internal products ourselves that we'll be releasing soon that really give our clients the benefit of those automations, so they can come in and look at real-time performance of their campaigns, and perhaps revenue if they're selling tickets. So automating that. I'm also thinking about it from more of a operational perspective. So, what are the automation tools that we could use in terms of project and product delivery, assigning from a project management methodology? Are there ways we can make that more efficient using automation or AI? So yeah, exploring options. Clearly, there's so much of what we do does rely on, thankfully, people and emotional connections and lived experiences. So for us, it's going to be how do we blend the both to give our clients the best outcome.
A lot of agency leaders who listen to this podcast, they might recognize the feeling: big name clients, big budgets, sometimes big egos. What's your philosophy for managing those kinds of relationships?
I think, well, first of all, I think, for me personally, I have an ethos. You're only as good as your team, okay? And bringing in the right people that have the right fit with our agency, but also our clients is a priority for me. So, constantly thinking about, the clients that we're dealing with, like you say, some of them, they don't have too big an ego. Some of them do, but, and who will be what's the right team dynamic to work with those clients? I think I've talked a lot about, the early stages of the client relationship and building trusted relationships, quite transparent relation. I think if you can start there, then you can handle some of the different sort of egos and different characters that you might come across. We also try to make sure that I spoke about the kind of makeup of the team, depending on the client and the chemistry and who we're working with. That would inform how I structure the team. And so we always make sure that there's a member of the SLT that's available, that can be involved in the client relationship depends on which level we need, but that will be available, whether it's an escalation point or a once a quarter check-in. They would have a senior member of the team, but equally making sure that we've got the right dynamic, the right chemistry of people within the team to service our clients is super important. The chemistry, and clients need to feel that we're as invested as they are in their business, and that's not unique to sport. But I think with sport being such an emotional, changeable industry, I think I know that if they feel they've got a team from WePlay that are on their side, on the bench with them, then we see that we can handle egos.
I can imagine for the big shot clients, the expectations are really high, the opportunities maybe as well, but it's maybe not for everyone to work for these high stakes clients. How do you manage that internally? Do you have people who work mainly on the emerging brands and then other people who work on the bigger clients?
At the moment, I try personally with the team not to. Clearly, a client needs a dedicated core team that they know and they work with regularly. But I'm very keen and try to be as proactive as to make sure members of the team get the opportunity to work with clients that they're interested in.
What kind of talent do you attract at WePlay? Or more importantly, what kind of talent do you need to be successful in the fast-paced sports marketing world?
So in terms of what kind of talent we need, sport, as you know, is not 9 to 5, as we've touched on. So we're looking for people that, generally understand and are passionate about sport, for one, because then if they are, they'll understand the industry and the ways in which we'll need to work. Potentially that's evenings, it could be weekends. So just people that might need to understand that. We're fortunate to be approached by a lot of people. So we're really, we like proactivity. We like people that come with ideas, that ask questions, that perhaps challenge what we're doing, but also take themselves outside of their comfort zone, because it's so changeable and we need to be agile. We kind of need people. Yes, there's the concept of staying in your lane, but we also need people that are going to perhaps push themselves and try something new, so that we can deploy a team quickly, and that might need some different skill sets. So people that are kind of up for that challenge, for perhaps not working the standard 9 to 5, for trying new things, passionate about sport. I think the data side and being quite analytical is important at WePlay. So much of what we do is based on data, and data and KPIs for our clients, so people that understand that. But equally, we have a creative side of our business. So I'm always looking at that. For me, people that understand both the creative, the arts, and the science of what we do is really important.
That doesn't seem like an easy job. So
No.
I'm wondering, is there room at WePlay for juniors for learning on the job, or is it more of a Premier League environment where only the top players can survive?
No, definitely not. Quite the opposite. We're really keen on bringing in new talent that's people that perhaps it's their first job, or even second job, but just have those sort of unique traits and enthusiasm and energy that when we're speaking to them, you kind of instantly know if they're going to work well within the environment of WePlay. We have a nice cross section of levels and hierarchy on accounts. We're very much driven by respect and bringing in and mentoring and educating and training newer people in the business.
Okay. Let's turn it around and focus on the client for a bit. We hear in our conversations that client expectations have sometimes, in a negative way, expanded. That clients will often send like a WhatsApp late at night asking for an update on some sort of project, and that C-levels at agencies have to push back on that. I could imagine that perhaps happening at bigger sports clubs or organizations. Or am I wrong, Sharon?
No, you're right. You're right. We do. As I said, as part of people that want to work in sport, it kind of comes with the territory to a point that there is a need to be not always on, but being aware of the cycle of the client. And we at WePlay, we work with global sports brands, sports clubs. So in fact, our two top markets currently are UAE and the US. So that comes with the time zone considerations. And so whilst I wouldn't expect our team to be addressing things late at night, there might be a need to be responsive during hours that aren't necessarily 9 to 5. What we look at is what that expectation might be based on the project or the campaign or the season. And it might be that we introduce a slightly different working model, like a rotational team. We have colleagues in different markets that helps with time zones, making sure that as part of that onboarding phase, we sort of establish ways of working, rules of engagement, we call it, so we know how we're going to work best together and what might be needed, and giving ourselves time to sort of structure a team and a way of working that supports the sports industry or that particular client that we're working with. But I find if you can be collaborative and talk to the client, generally they're understanding and that we can build out a scenario or an approach or a structure that works for both of us.
Have you ever had to reset expectations with a high-powered client? Did you ever have to send a message to like a Saudi sheikh saying, "Sorry, we can be available 24/7"?
Not quite like that, no. But we've worked with them to sort of establish what the main communication method would be, and tried to streamline the points of contact so we're all, clear of what's required and when. As I said, rotational team, so we're sharing, across the team. And do you know what? That actually builds camaraderie in the team, because you're helping each other, and we might have to provide, let's say, weekend cover for an event, or and making sure, if we're all working together, to perhaps release the pressure from somebody else, it actually indirectly builds morale in the team, because you are coming together to help each other out. On the upside, we're fortunate to be invited to some of the best sporting events in the calendar. So that there are pros to working within sport and around different sort of time zones, I guess, or different sort of working days. And we sometimes adapt based on the campaign. So we might require people to start early but finish early, or give them some time back on a Friday. And we obviously offer time off in lieu and all of that sort of stuff. But that comes with resourcing challenges itself.
As we all know, sports and entertainment works in sprints, big championships, World Cups, short windows of massive volume. How does that impact your portfolio and the predictability of your work?
So we have, as I said earlier, we do work across a number of different. So our portfolio is quite broad in terms of the actual sports we work with. So everything from curling to MMA to football to tennis. So it's good that we have that broad spectrum of clients in our portfolio that have different seasonal diaries and schedules. And that gives us some predictability based on the seasons and when we know what will happen and when. We offer, within those different sports portfolios, we offer different services. So again, we know for some of our clients, we have always on retainers, which we know we have in place, whether it's for the year or for 2 years. Then we also have more reactive ad hoc projects and campaigns that come in. So for me and the team, the portfolio being quite diverse, a combination of different services and sports clients, gives us that it's less risk, because obviously we're not just working in football or just working on the Champions League. We've got that sort of security there. I think, if it's very much around an event and a team, let's say, being in the final, that's harder to predict. And mainly we work with clients to develop scenarios on that basis, so we can manage team and resourcing accordingly. But they are harder, obviously, to predict, knowing if someone's going to be in the final and what that therefore means.
Do you yourself strategically try to build a portfolio with that mix, or did it just sort of happen that these differences are there?
No, I mean, I think initially we've been very strong, I think, historically in football, and that's over the last sort of, I think, 11, 12 years that the WePlay has been established, which is quite, has really grown to sort of a much broader portfolio, which is intentional. So really looking at, what do we do in mass participation sports, and so one of our big clients is Ironman, and therefore what, from that learning and knowledge, how can we add value to other clients in that particular sector? What we do for some of our MMA clients, biggest one being obviously UFC, what can we learn from that, and to approach different sort of properties in that particular space. So there's definitely targeted strategies to grow within a specific sport, and then within the sports, obviously it's looking at the different formats and the changes that we're seeing within sports, and how can we cross fertilize what we know across different sports.
So what happens if you look at your portfolio and you see, well, we have a lot of football clients, for instance, so maybe not a good idea to have more football clients, but diversify a bit. But then a big club comes knocking on your door. Will you then say no to that club because it might create a risk in your portfolio?
I suspect not. I don't think we would say. We would obviously assess the risks as part of the qualification process. We're fortunate we don't have an over-reliance on any one sport at the moment. So should that scenario of a big club in any one area come up, it wouldn't cause us major concerns. And that's an ongoing exercise of just reviewing that with the senior leadership team, just to make sure that we do have, a solid cross-section of sports. But certainly if a huge club came knocking, I don't think at this point we'd need to say no.
Okay.
How important is brand equity and opportunity in your client selection? Will you sometimes take on or continue a client relationship where the profits aren't huge, but it might be really good for the WePlay brand?
Yeah, look, I mean, we're an agency. We're around 40 people, so we're relatively small, but perfectly formed, I like to say. And working with some of these big clients does give us incredible credentials and case studies that we can use to help grow our business and hopefully bring value to broader cross section of clients. And yeah, like any client, we have portfolio brands that we work with that we know bring attention and perhaps position us as a top tier, an agency that can work with these top tier clients. Equally, the smaller brands that we work with or clients that are new or progressive and new they come with their own challenges and unique challenges and ways of working. So they're also appealing to other clients that would consider themselves in sort of in that, I guess, demographic. So that having that range, I think, is really important. But brand equity it's important to clients, therefore it's important to WePlay.
You mentioned contingency. There's a lot of ifs and buts in the world of sports marketing. Now, coincidentally, we recently had a podcast guest who was talking about making a video with his advertising agency for when his team won the championship, but then they failed in the last minute and all of that expensive work had to be stuck in a drawer somewhere. Is that something you've experienced yourself? And how do you deal with that volatility?
To be honest, I haven't. I mean, we would try and be very open and honest with the client. If they are asking us to do something that may or may not happen, we still need some security in terms of we have a team deployed on it. We're spending time and resource, on this job. I don't think it's fair of a client to expect if it doesn't happen, they don't pay you. I have been involved where perhaps some of the work we've done hasn't been launched, which is equally quite deflating, but it does happen. But certainly, I think managing that scenario where you're not actually doing something that you wouldn't therefore be either paid for or remunerated for in some way. It might be that there are different ways. So you might not necessarily. It might not be a payment thing. It might be more you have a credit that the client will give you or an agreement that there might be some additional work or opportunities for you. And I think that's where that having an open, grown-up, honest conversation with the client around that scenario. I think that for me would be a red flag if there was a potential that we're doing all of this work and we might not get recognised for it. And I certainly think my FD would say that too.
I think we can wrap it up almost. I maybe had one final question for you, Sharon. Do you have one project in particular you're looking forward to right now? What's on your agenda?
What I'd love to be doing is working or collaborating with a brand that is looking to invest in women's sport in some way and helping them really activate, grow awareness, think about the campaigns and work across what they're doing with that particular women's sport. So you're seeing some brands entering that space. There's still a lot of work to do, but I'd love to find a brand partner that is looking to do that and work with them to make that happen.
Okay, so if anyone is listening to this podcast and is in women's sports, reach out to Sharon.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've got lots of ideas. Yeah.
Sharon, thank you. Thank you for all the sharp insights. You've given us a lot to think about. I do think sports marketing is an evolving branch, let's say, in the bigger marketing sphere. And I think it's a very interesting one to keep an eye on. So thanks for informing us on the ins and outs. Where can our listeners connect with you or learn more about WePlay?
So I'm available on LinkedIn, Sharon Bennett, and WePlay. Our website is weplay.co, so you can find my details on there as well.
Okay. And you, dear listener, thanks again for joining us. This was Agency Life by Teamleader. Don't want to miss a single episode? Well, then head over to thisisagencylife.com or agencylife.be or agencylife.nl so you can binge all of our lovely, lovely content in between 2 games of your favorite sports team. Obviously. Catch you next time.
See you. Bye-bye.